right. Welcome to KLEAN Radio. It's Andrew and my co-host Judah. How you doing tonight, Judah?
I am great.
Yeah?
Yeah, turned 35 this week.
Yeah? Talk about, we just slammed into the studio. We got here, we have a different engineer. It's going to be a little tight.
Change. It's about change.
Right?
Dealing with change.
Dealing with change. Right? Anyway.
So, yes, wish me a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Judah.
Big 3-5.
Yeah?
No.
Plus what?
Plus, it's minus.
Really?
Plus, come on.
It's supposed to be plus for a guy and minus for a girl.
Look at me.
They always say women, you're supposed to subtract 3 years from what they say.
Okay.
Or add 3 years, I'm sorry.
Right, so...
Maybe you had it right, I'm sorry.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Right, yeah. It's tough to do.
I know, you have no faith in me, you have no belief in me.
So what's been new this week?
Other than my birthday? Other than turning 35? I don't know. Not much. I mean, I don't know what you're doing. You're scribbling down. You left your notes. You're all in a whole schlemiel. You're a little out of whack because,
I've had a rough week. I've been moving, which is always the worst.
Yeah.
And then working on buying this other treatment center. So.
You moved the floor.
Yeah, exactly. I moved a whole floor, but it's just as bad as moving anywhere. So.
Which I don't understand. Did you have to hire moving people?
Yeah.
You still have to hire moving people even if you're moving a floor?
It's not as simple as one would think. I had to put it all in the elevator. It's a lot of furniture.
Not you personally.
Right. I had a lot of books. It was really heavy.
And you donated a lot to Goodwill?
As much as I possibly could.
Did they actually want it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that would have to stink if you went down to Goodwill.
And they reject your stuff.
And they reject your stuff.
That could happen, I suppose, right?
How many CDs do you actually have?
I don't know, thousands. I have no idea. At least 10,000.
And you have your Marilyn Manson mask that for some reason you're still saving.
It's not just a mask. I know that you like to think that it's no big deal, but it's,
I'm happy you're not wearing a Joy Division shirt anymore. I don't know if I could take that after learning last week what Joy Division was.
Yeah, you don't get the irony of it, though. It's not literal. Joy Division represented the prostitutes of the Nazis. That's not what it was about. It was about, England being this broken down.
Okay, we're getting way off topic.
Right.
I'm just going to bust on Joy Division.
That's all you have to talk about.
No, I've actually been thinking a lot about last week's topic, which is the second A&A.
Right.
Which is
I thought we actually had a really good show about that.
We did.
For our listeners, why don't you remind them about what that was?
No, there was a New York Times article written by somebody whose name I can't remember, but it was in the New York Times, and he was talking about the second A in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that, people are really coming out more than they ever have. So it's not as anonymous as it used to be.
And also that it shouldn't be, right? The fact that the stigma is kind of lifted, and maybe it's time for us to look at, new ways of looking at the treatment of alcoholism.
Well, that's what you took out of it.
It said that in the article.
I actually didn't read the article. I just saw the...
See, this is why we need me, because I actually read the articles, and you just pretend to
So what did the actual article say?
It was saying that, the stigma needs to be lifted, and it's important that just like being gay was in 70s and 80s, that people should be outed for being addicts so that the message of sobriety and recovery can really be heard.
So they should out themselves.
Or be outed by other people, which, I have an issue with that because I think that people have a right from...
Well, you got outed in the 70s
standpoint.
about something else. I'm joking.
But from a medical standpoint, I think there's still, compliance of, anonymity that's important.
I feel like we're in prison right now. I feel like we're in a cage in the zoo.
We have our guests
and our guests just staring at us.
And of course they're both professionals, so they're like,
yes.
Let's see how they handle the first 10 minutes off the fly. And
I know that was an intense ride. First of all, let's just talk about it. Our two guests tonight live in the oddest of places. Okay, one lives in Tarzana, where the only reason I know of Tarzana is because there's a treatment center called Tarzana. And the other one lives in a city called Montrose.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Which is all I know about Montrose was that it was a band.
And all I know about Montrose is that our guest is from there.
Yeah, well, there we go.
And it was an interesting car ride. We found out, quite a lot. But then we took the wrong exit off the highway to go to the bathroom, which is always fun. You can never. That's always something. You ever notice that whenever you have to go to the bathroom really badly and you pull off the highway, you never pull to the gas station. That you never pull to the Valero in the sky. That great AM/PM or that great Valero. You always pull over to that one.
I try to hit the McDonald's. They're always a little safer.
Yes.
So.
And I found out you can't pee in public, or you have a hard time just going behind the car.
You're saying that I can't pee in public?
Yeah, you have a hard time going behind the car, I realized.
And this is a bad thing that I have some sort of social...
Yes, because in a pinch, you're a dude. It's one of the gifts of being a guy, is that we could just go behind an SUV.
You obviously are not a drinker, because I've seen plenty of women pee in public.
So let me ask you this question. So because of your rare affliction, which is colder to carrier.
You're really going to bring up my colder to carry again? This is our show is becoming about colder to carry.
But again, about your colder to carrier, which is your rare form of, if you get hot to cold too quickly.
Right.
You can have a severe
anaphylactic reaction.
So I was thinking.
Can you even say that?
Anaphylactic seizure. So
reaction.
I was curious. Maybe the reason you were scared to go to pee outside was because of the change of hot to cold.
We live in Southern California, and it makes things swell, so it probably wouldn't be that bad.
What are you jotting down there, by the way?
Just my homicide before suicide list.
And I'm guessing I'm on it.
It could be.
So it was a good week, It was
Yeah.
a very good week. It's something special about turning 35, spending it with your friends.
35.
I know. Never thought.
I hated my 30s. I'm surprised that
I love it.
Really?
Oh, why not?
It's like that age between you lost your 20s and you're not really in your 40s and kind of in control of things yet.
You think way too much. Anybody ever tell you that? Because that's way too deep of a thought.
I'm just telling you my experience. I found my 30s to be kind of awkward, and my 40s were very together.
You were still in that nerd stage?
No, it was that transition for me was difficult. I don't know why.
Well, the number here is 877-8830-830. The number here is 877-8830-830. You're listening to KLEAN Radio. You could also find us on Facebook at KLEANradio.com. And what's interesting, though, about what you were talking about is you're one of the rare, you're one of the few people I know in Los Angeles that's actually gone to college. But
or completed
college, and
not to mention graduate school.
You're not to mention graduate school, right? And you actually, it is a rare thing. I mean, you must be the biggest buzzkill sometimes at conversations when people are talking, and you're like, "Well, I got my doctorate,"
Yeah, it's not too bad.
As I just offended half our listenership.
Yeah, right. Well, not half.
Not half.
A few. Anyway, so the big news in addiction studies this week. How boring is this? Fruit flies on meth. It sounds like a joke, right? We can do a whole bit on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Studies is exploring the whole body effects of toxic drugs. They claim that by looking at fruit flies, they can tell that crystal meth affects the proteins in the brain. Doesn't seem like they would need fruit flies to figure that out, but I guess
I don't get the test.
Yeah, it's one of these things where they get a grant and all of a sudden,
To test what? Meth is addictive.
Yeah, no, it's just saying they can show that there's molecular changes at the brain level from the use of meth.
And this is what they did a study on.
I just want to know how they got the fruit flies to smoke the meth.
Actually, how does that work?
I don't know. I have no idea without killing them.
So this is your interesting topic that you wanted to talk about, was fruit flies?
It's the big news on
the big news in addiction.
Yeah.
It's the.
They're saying it's important because they now know that methamphetamines influence the cellular processes associated with aging. It affects spermogenesis. Can't have babies if you're smoking meth, and it impacts the heart.
That might not be a bad thing for some
all these things to
people.
me, it's just amazing. It's they're kind of self-evident, right? I mean, if you're smoking meth, do you think that it's going to do wonders for your heart?
Well, the good thing is that it affects you having kids.
That's true.
So it's sort of that is the bonus to many of the people that are smoking meth in Bakersfield, is that they're not reproducing.
Yeah, well, I've seen plenty of pregnant meth addicts, unfortunately, but
I never did it.
No?
Nope, never. I never.
That's
did.
right, you got sober pretty young.
Yeah.
They didn't, I guess they had...
That's
they had
actually
like-
not true because
they
I
had Benzedrine, didn't
I want to
you?
tell you, I was in a halfway house years ago in Arizona, in Mesa, Arizona,
Right.
and I remember they were talking a bunch of. It was not really a great place. We had a bunch of dudes, and they were sharing about the meth drought in Arizona, it was like the meth drought of '98.
Right.
And like the seriousness that these guys were talking about how the meth had dried.
Do you know what that was about?
No.
You know what happened was ephedrine, which is the major active ingredient in meth. It was made by 3 labs in Mexico that were selling it legally, and the DEA went down and shut down those labs and controlled their production. And there was a direct correlation between the amount of meth addiction and the production of ephedrine from those 3 labs.
Oh wow!
And you could see statistically the addiction rates dropping or going up depending on whether or not they were able to control the production of the drug or not.
And they all ended up in my halfway house in Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah, right. Anyway, we're going to go out to a break, and we'll be back, and you can reach us at
877-830-830, 877-830-830. Hopefully we'll be able to regroup by the time we come back.
Yeah,
and
we're
we'll
gonna
bring
come-
in our first guest, Vicki Abelson.
Yeah, who's got a great history, and it's going to be very exciting. So we will see you in a couple seconds. All right. Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. Judah, you got your Angels cap on?
I do have my Angels cap on, which was a gift, a very nice 35th birthday gift from our
former. No?
from Rand.
Oh. Poor Rand. I love Rand, though. He's been so good to us.
He has been good to us. It was nice. He came
Right.
to my birthday.
Came to your birthday. He helped determine that you were not able to complete the pitch over the mound like you had bragged for weeks that you could.
I still believe I can, just in the daytime. Okay? There's a difference when you... I'm convinced I could throw a pitch over a mound 60 feet. And so we go to Target one night, and we bought tape. We bought a baseball.
We actually made a strike zone.
We made a strike zone in the parking lot of Angel Stadium instead of using the mound that they actually have.
Because Judy doesn't have enough pull to actually get us in there.
No, there's a mound outside.
Oh, yeah, the one outside.
The one outside that we should have used. So we put tape, and I missed by a little bit.
Right.
And
You know, men are always doing this to me. No.
We just, by the way, we have Vicki Abelson in the studio.
Yes.
Hello, Vicki.
Hello, Andrew.
I just
Judah.
pushed the microphone right in her face, and that's what that last comment was about. So it was a little intimidating. You got to stay really
Quite
close.
large.
It is large.
It's large and black and yeah.
Yeah, I've seen larger, but
But it's a family show, Andrew. It's a family show.
at 10 o'clock at night, is it a family show?
Yes, it's a family show about addiction.
If your family's up listening at 10 o'clock, you have a bad family. I think that's a...
Wow.
That's
You're in-
harsh.
I know he's in a lot of judgment
That's
tonight.
right. Yeah,
Andrew,
that's harsh.
Andrew's very regimented. So the fact that our schedule got a little off tonight.
I know, I got thrown off.
He's just got thrown off, and he moved a floor up, and it's been
It's worldly.
It's been harrowing, and he couldn't find a box in his
It may
apartment.
have only been a floor, but for my wife, it was a lifetime of
Yes.
change. So it was more the emotional attachment and then reattachment to our new space. Not great.
I just want to give you another thing because Patrick again pointed me to move over to the right, and I don't want our viewers to think that every time a female is in the studio, I
making
get
a move?
He makes a move.
I
He
make
does.
I make a
We had
move.
someone from Playboy.com last week, and he just kept inching over, and I was like, something's going on here. And then Judah has this mythical girlfriend that he keeps telling us about.
Yeah, I heard about her.
So,
Yeah.
but I actually met her today, so...
Oh, you just
Oh,
killed
I
the
just
whole.
killed the whole
you
bit.
killed the whole.
I
You
know.
know, she exists.
She does exist, which proves that something good can come out of sobriety.
One of the gifts.
I can't believe it. She's actually beautiful, intelligent, smart.
And standing.
She obviously doesn't know you. Why, you just can't... No comeback for that?
I'm
He's blushing like
yeah,
that.
He's
serious.
and I'm all in full like sort of red tonight.
Well, we're a black and white video, so you
Yeah.
can get around that.
I can.
So anyway, welcome, Vicki. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And your website's impressive. I've been looking at all your stuff about your writing workshops and
My salon.
your salon. I'm sorry, I said workshop. Did I just do that after that whole discussion in the car?
Yeah, Judah. He thought we were doing hair, but kind of. Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you saying, Andrew?
I was just saying that it was impressive that it looks like you have some really cool writers coming through. And
Absolutely. It's pretty crazy. It's in my living room, and I've had Tom Bergeron and Evan Handler and Marley Matlin and Harry Hamlin, and this month Phil Rosenthal is coming in. He's the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond, and he has a documentary out called Exporting Raymond about his taking it to the USSR, and it is crazy. You guys have to go see it. This documentary is off the hook. I mean, they have absolutely no sense of humor in Russia at all.
Or would you?
well, I live in West Hollywood, so I know that for a fact.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, it's a whole different attitude towards everything.
Oh my
I mean, that was always like if every Russian movie joke is that they don't have a sense of humor.
And they drink. Oh my God! I mean, and I was actually thinking as I was watching the movie, what would I have done if I was Phil? Because assimilating into the culture, I mean, everything, like he went to this family dinner and they were just doing shots. They kept pouring, everything was, let's do a shot. And they're doing shots. And as a sober person, you know what? Because
Right,
you'd be insulting them, you know, like big time. And it wouldn't, like, I'm sober. I don't think that those words mean anything in Russia.
We have to be very careful, Vicki and I, because we're two Jews and we talk with our hands a lot. So like we're like, yes, it's like I just can't talk at the same time as you because both our hands are.
I have insurance for that.
It's synergy.
So that's cool. So you're sober, obviously.
I am.
Do you think that has affected your like what you do with this workshop or salon? Like,
It's not a workshop.
I know.
Salon.
Last time I say it.
Andrew, it's not just
No.
you, by the way. Andrew's a problem with a lot of words.
No, it's really a crap name. It's called Women Who Write, but actually I have more. No, it's not a writers group.
Right.
It's not about women who write. It's readings for women by women who write. But I have men who read all the time now because when Tom Bergeron's book was dropping, I sent him a note on Facebook and I said, "Oh, I wish you were a girl because I'd really like you to come read." And he said, "I'll wear a skirt." And I said, "You know what? I made this thing up. I can change it." So he came with Evan Handler from Sex and the City and Ron Zimmerman, and so now I've been having men all the time, but I only have women in the audience, and
it's famous men.
And it
it can't just be like,
can't
you
be a
know,
schmagag.
yeah, it can't just be like
no.
Judah reading.
No, it's like Harry Hamlin.
Right.
Yeah, it's like cool man, and so I have these readings. I have a singer-songwriter who opens, and then there's 3 readers. I always read. I serialize my book, which is called Don't Jump, which is about a lot of it is about. It's a story of redemption, but it's kind of me getting to my bottom and.
Right.
But it's sex, drugs, rock and roll, and celebrity kind of all mished in there. But anyway, and then we have this provocative discussion at the end, and it is very much like a meeting. I mean, as a matter of fact, I was thinking about it today coming down here that I'm going to say at the next one, hey, all of you in here who have never been to a meeting, this is what it's like. Because I think a lot of people that have never been to a meeting, you know, my image of a meeting before I went was like a bunch of guys with cigarettes and in a basement and coffee and scary, creepy, and
you found out you were right.
And there are in New York some meetings like that.
Well, I got sober in New York. That's how it was like.
And some of them are cool.
I loved it. I would not have been able to get sober if not for these meetings in New York where, I mean, I got sober in this meeting in New York called Midnight, which was on Houston and Barrack. It's right across from the Film Forum, and you had to walk up these dark black stairs, and you'd walk into the room, and half the room was smoking. Half the room was non-smoking. And
well, that had to be a long time ago if you were allowed to smoke in the meeting.
It was about 13 years ago, and you had some guy sitting on the floor named Stan the Hat who looked like he had been sitting there for about 80 years. And you like walked in and you're like, hey, this is home. And it was fun. It was a fun, fun place to get sober. I'd probably have a harder time in the LA area.
Do you think, like, being in recovery, like, a lot of what this show's about is not so much about getting sober, but it's about once you're sober, what do people do in recovery? Like, does it change their lives?
It completely changed my life. There's no coincidence that I've been sober for 9 years, and I started my book 9 years ago, and I finished it. And, you know, it's no coincidence that I started this literary salon in sobriety, and it's a success. And, you know, everything that I'm doing now, would not be happening at all. You know, I mean, I was a rock and roll promoter when I was using, and, you know, I had a pretty good run doing it, but my life was very different.
Right. It's tough not to use in the rock and roll world.
Yeah, although most of the musicians I know now are sober, and even
They're
the
starting
guys,
to be.
even the dinosaurs that were famous for using back then, they're almost all sober, and they insist their bands be sober and their crews, and it's pretty different. I mean, there are certainly still people partying.
Well, that's the lifestyle. I mean, it caters to it.
Well, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? But that's kind of, it's becoming passé almost. I mean, I think people that take art seriously are starting to see that, you know, the use of drugs and alcohol don't really necessarily correspond to better art.
Well, I think for a while it might work. I mean, I think for a while, I'm not saying that alcohol and drugs helps you, but, you know, there's a certain point when you look at a lot of the bands, especially from the 80s, most of them are still living in the 80s. You know, and they go on tour every summer. They have the same they have the same tours. You know, Poison. I mean, because they haven't grown. To them, it's still 1986.
Right.
And I know.
They didn't know when to break up like the Beatles.
Well, and you and I aren't probably the biggest U2 fans. I mean, I'm U2 the old school, but not U2 this. But at least they've come out with a new album. At least they haven't been playing like, you know, Under a Blood Red Sky for the last 25 years.
Yeah, we've also sort of seen the death of the music industry. I mean, it's nothing like it was. The internet's really changed it. And
Completely. I mean, nobody goes to clubs anymore. I was a musician contacted me today and asked if I could help him put butts in the seat to do a gig in New York, you know, and use my contacts. And I was like, my friends don't go out anymore. Nobody goes to clubs anymore. Those days are over.
It's amazing, isn't it? It just disappeared.
Because we can watch, we can sit at home, we can turn on our computer, and we can watch anything, everything, whenever we want.
Right. But there's nothing new. It really kind of upsets me. I mean, you know, when's the last time a really great new band has come along? I mean, it's... You know,
well, I didn't go to Coachella, but I think there are people who would disagree with you.
You mean Lady Gaga? Doesn't? I'm totally joking.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of new stuff coming out, but, you know, what comes out and what you actually think becomes commercial is just so derivative at this
what
point.
becomes commercial,
Right.
but I think the stuff that we aren't hearing,
Right.
I think there's still some exciting stuff
Well,
going on.
it's that tribalism. We've got all these thousands and thousands of very small groups of sort of eclectic fan bases, which is interesting. I mean, it's different. But you certainly don't get the development of musical artists like you got in the 70s.
You're obviously a lot more into music than most people, because I just like listen to what comes out.
Right.
I don't really think about it too, although I haven't really bought a new album. And, you know.
Well, first of all, there aren't albums
and
anymore.
and there's no buying anymore. Everybody's
Right.
just doing it, getting the stuff on the internet and figuring out ways to steal it. And
Right. It's unfortunate.
Anyways, the number here is 877-830-830, 877-830-830. We were talking about before, because we were talking about it last week, and I really think it's probably the biggest issue that will face any 12-step group in the next, you know, decades to come, is the anonymity factor.
Right.
I mean, I can't think of a bigger issue that they're going to be forced to deal with.
this is a big issue for me because in my book, which I started writing as a novel, because I didn't want to give up anybody, and I didn't want to break the traditions. So I started as a novel. Then
So it's going to be fiction?
So it started out as a novel, and I've now adjusted that, and I'm calling it a fictionalized memoir.
Right.
So
Yeah, ever since A Million Little Pieces, everything's fictionalized memoir.
yeah, well,
Nobody dares write a memoir
I
anymore.
have the opposite issue of him, because he was saying things were true and they weren't. I was
Right.
saying things weren't true, but they
But they
are.
were.
Well, some of it I made some up, but for me, you know, the traditions are really important. I love that. I love this whole issue coming up, though, because I do think these things were decided in a different era with different issues, and I think the fact that recovery is more accessible now, gets a lot of people sober.
Right. I you know, something we talk about. There's, you know, we especially out in L.A. or New York, we think that we're the vanguard of every, you know, but there are 48 states in the middle, and people have to know that there is help out there.
It's really important, and also we were also talking in the car. Well, we were talking earlier in the show actually about, you know, this image. I especially think for women that they're going to walk into these rooms and it's going to be these scary old derelicts in there with no teeth, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I actually wrote a treatment about my fellowship, which is a different fellowship because I smoked pot. That was my drug of choice.
Cool.
And
just turn the mic more in front of your face.
Oh,
Just have
sorry.
the engineers having a
this
little
big black thing, I have
Yes,
to.
yes, it shouldn't be that hard.
Well,
go,
yeah.
so much
Actually,
better.
at least this time it's me doing it instead
They're really
of you shoving in
omnidirectional.
my.
Unfortunately, they're very omnidirectional
Okay.
mics.
So tell
yeah,
me when.
Just straight
okay.
in.
So
There you go.
it's so phallic. So anyway, yeah, to just demystify, I think it's really important. I think it keeps a lot of people out of the rooms because they don't know what it's about. And I think the more, do you guys watch Rescue Me?
No.
No.
Unbelievable show. I mean, I think the way they handle the whole issue of addiction is probably the most realistic take, except the only drag is that everybody keeps going out. And
Well, that's sort of as realistic sometimes.
it is and it isn't. I mean, everybody's always going out, and they don't really work their programs.
Right. Well, they want the drama.
Yes.
We actually have a call. You want to take the call?
Yes, let's take the call. Or we
Here
don't.
we go. It's Barbara. Barbara, are you
Hi.
there? Welcome to KLEAN Radio.
Hi, Vicki.
Barbara, hi! Facebook friend. Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
Yay!
I just wanted to listen,
Okay.
and you know, Vicki, try not to insult the host too much.
I'm a little snarky on Facebook. I'm behaving myself, Barbara. Have you been listening?
Can I call you Barbie?
We would never have you in the salon. You know,
Yikes.
be nice to these guys.
This is great. It sounds like that SNL skit. What was it? The Mike Myers, the Barbara Streisand.
Coffee Talk?
Coffee Talk.
Coffee talk.
Don't be me.
Yes.
Four. I think it was 4, right?
I don't know. I didn't watch it enough.
So, Barbara, how do you know Vicki?
Well, we have a lot of mutual friends. I used to live in Los Angeles as the entertainment business. It's a long story. I'm a psychic medium. It's a whole, who cares? But the point I wanted is, and we have lovely funniness together, and we're just a couple of old. I'm a former rock and roller Jewish girl from Chicago, so I relate.
Oh, that's great.
And you're from the Bronx, so holla.
Yeah, well, I have a couple of questions, but first,
Yeah.
there's Janelle Monáe, M-O-N-E-A. She was at the Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant, young, incredible artists that are out right now. Celio, or Celio, whatever his name is.
CeeLo.
Love him. There's, God, I mean, I'm just so blown away with what the kids are doing. Jessie J. Look up Jessie J.
Okay.
My God. I mean, brilliant.
You could just put that on our
They seem to all
Facebook.
be very hip, very deep, and very sober.
Oh, right on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're very, it's not rap, it's music. They sing. I'm trying to.
And they've been outed.
I am trying to remember because I'm older and, you know, I'm not of the generation. But this gal, Janae, is a black woman who's just a genius. And her videos are amazing. There's a video called Tightrope, and it takes place in a mental institution where, it's totally, oh my God, it's so low key and it's so hip. And she dances like James Brown.
Wow.
Barbara, you were going to ask us a question.
What was the second question? Because that was a very big
good
statement.
statement.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's my question.
Yes.
I've always felt being the tribal hippie thing. I lived in Marin. There was some need for people to sit in a circle and break the vibration between each other by using some alternative drugs. And I think in our society we ended up overdoing everything, overeating, over everything, you know, and just got lost in what these might be
And
useful
this is a
for.
question, Barbara. What's the
So the
question?
question is there a place for, let's say, marijuana? I'm not talking about methamphetamine. And I'm also wondering how you feel about people who actually benefit from using marijuana for medical. Because there are some people with diseases that, quite frankly...
Without a doubt, people
Yeah,
with glaucoma
look, I
could be
mean,
majorly...
Yeah, I mean, you know, I own several rehabs. I've owned psych hospitals in the past. I am actually, believe it or not, pro-legalization of all drugs. I'm very much a libertarian when it comes to that standpoint. I do believe very strongly that there's a difference between use, abuse, and then addiction. And I don't think people really understand that continuum of those three levels of exposure to drugs, which is, by the way, a very public health model and not really an addiction model. People that believe in the full disease theory of addiction and the disease theory only believe that people are born genetically with an alcoholic personality, and therefore, if they're exposed to alcohol, will become an alcoholic no matter what. I don't really believe that's true. I think that that's true for some people. Some people are very, very highly disposed to having an inability to tolerate alcohol. But I think there's a lot of people that are progressive in their addiction, and you know, excessive use leads to tolerance, then addiction. We're gonna take a break, Barbara. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for the
for
call,
calling, Barbara. Yay!
Facebook.
All right, welcome back to KLEAN Radio. We're having a fun time today.
Yes, we are, as always.
Welcome, Mike Muratore. Welcome, Mike.
Hello.
You got to really pull the mic up.
All right.
There you
Go
go.
right there.
There you go. Good.
Hi, Mike.
I notice a lot of people that come into the studio have an aversion to the microphone.
You know what?
Well, it's
These
big and
mics-
black, so.
This is a
And it's in your
very
face.
large microphone.
And they're tough to work. 'Cause
Well,
they're-
welcome to Real Radio.
Right?
This is you know, I know
This is
people.
Real Radio.
I know,
Internet.
right? This
But the
isn't
funny
like
thing is, the mics probably on an internet station are better. They're multi-directional, and they're
Well,
so
they're
cheap
tiny.
now. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so the quality doesn't have to be as high to stream on the internet.
it just looks better like this, okay?
This is authentic.
Right.
This is
old
authentic.
school.
This
The
is
real
this is
thing.
like
Old school.
yeah. It's
So
like
we just had our call from Barbara, and she was talking about are there legitimate uses for drugs and the alternating of consciousness.
well, I
And
think there's legitimate uses of everything.
Exactly. And I think different cultures do handle substances in different ways. I mean, certainly there's whole cultures built around the ritualization and the ritualized use of drugs in ways that aren't as destructive as the way we do. I mean, we ritualize the use of alcohol by binge drinking in college, and then, progressive alcoholism. It's not.
But I
But
mean,
there are also people that don't have addictive personalities that can handle it. A friend of mine just has cancer and was just given a medical marijuana card, and it's just started. And she doesn't have an addictive personality, so it's going to be okay for her. It wouldn't be an option for me.
I'd be really offended if I God forbid, if I had cancer and I had to get the medical marijuana card and I went down to one of these medical marijuana facilities and everybody there is like 21, 22 years old and they have a medical marijuana card for anxiety or...
I'm just really glad that it was not an option when I was using, because I don't think I ever would have. I've never been in one of those places,
Right.
but I've heard there's like a whole showcase of like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
you can like
It's
pick
like
your,
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
No, but better because it's in all these edibles
And it's super,
you can,
super strong.
and you
super
can
strong.
taste
Super strong.
stuff.
Yeah.
They give tastes like.
Yeah.
They give samples, like
Yeah,
when
like
you walk
Cold
in.
Stone, you can like say, "Can I?" Yeah.
Yeah, I remember in the 80s going to Amsterdam, and they have some pretty cool places in Amsterdam.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I'm sick that I never
Yeah.
got to do that.
They have actual
Order up a
menus.
menu.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe you're blessed because you might
yeah.
not have, you might never have left Amsterdam.
I
Marijuana
know.
and
I would have
hookers.
ended up like Brad. What was his name? In what was that movie where he was walking around the circle and he never got out?
True Romance.
No. The guy who actually died, but anyway,
Terminator?
no, the guy
Sleepless Seattle?
was in Amsterdam. And
Oh, Brad Davis,
Brad
Midnight
Davis,
Express, Midnight Express.
and he was smuggling the pot
Who
out.
died of AIDS, sadly.
Yes, he did.
Right.
Yeah.
Who sadly died of AIDS.
What do you think of performance-enhancing drugs? You think they should be legalized? Like
Sure.
for athletes? Because everybody does them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of ridiculous, the idea that somehow,
No, it's all the nanny. It's all the nanny society. It's like if somebody wants to go and use these performance-enhancing drugs, go for it.
I personally, what somebody does to their own body doesn't really bother me.
Right, and I get to watch great football players, and we serve both purposes. They play great football.
Yeah, and you can't tell me that NFL players aren't using steroids.
They all do them. That's
right?
the point I'm trying to make. So when they get busted, what your opinion is, should they all be? I think they should all be legal.
Well,
across
this point
the board.
is
Yeah,
just
but doesn't
kinda
that stuff
ridiculous.
make people like crazy, aggressive,
but they're all
insane?
doing it anyway. It doesn't really. I mean, it's an irrelevant point. They're all doing it anyway.
Well, you'd have to be crazy aggressive to play football anyways. So I don't really know how much the...
Yeah, but if they're amping it up, I don't know.
I don't know either, since I never obviously abused...
well, let's talk about cocaine, right? Cocaine is a horrible drug. I mean, there's really not too many positive things that you can get out of cocaine.
You get skinny. It's,
You get
I was
skinny.
really
Talk
skinny. Yeah, really skinny.
And about nothing.
And you can listen to the air around your head for a while.
Right? So, should cocaine be legalized?
Well, you're the one that's pro-legalization of every drug.
Well, I think because the effects of having them be illegal are worse than making them legal.
I don't know. I told you recently I was in Vancouver, and as we were driving down the street with a few of my friends, they were like, "Oh, that's where everybody shoots up," and I was like, "Where?" I'm looking for like a corner, and it was in a
public health shooting gallery,
right? Where nurses give them heroin, where.
Right.
And
heroin or methadone? They
heroin.
give them heroin?
Well, it's legalized in England
actually,
too.
they don't give them drugs. Actually,
They have to bring their own
drugs,
right?
But they give them a clean needle,
right?
And then if they overdose, they have Narcan, which will immediately bring them back to life.
It was quite the uplifting.
Nice.
It was quite the uplifting building.
But they also, what you're not telling them is that there's several floors, so they also have progressive levels of people that might want to limit their use, where they have groups and help.
It wasn't that I wasn't telling them. I didn't know that.
And then they also have therapy for people that want to become abstinent and sober. So it's really, truly a public health model where you say this activity is going on, people are overdosing constantly on the streets, we can't stop the use of this drug, so let's make an active effort to try and control the public health hazards of transmission of HIV, Hep C, and other blood transmissible
Has
diseases.
anybody done any research on what their sobriety rate is in relation to contrast to ours?
What they found is that actually by doing this, they greatly reduce the number of overdose deaths.
I'm hearing that, but
yeah.
are people getting sober?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah?
people are getting sober, yeah. And I think that, there's obviously more active involvement of treatment and treatment availability. Also, you have, in a lot of ways, a lot of diagnosis of psychiatric illnesses that otherwise wouldn't go diagnosed. So
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
Well, so much of addiction is self-medicating, which leads
Absolutely.
to addiction. And so if you actually have a way to meet people that are actively using in a non-threatening environment, then you can act as a therapist, you can join with that person in the state that they're in, even if it's during active addiction, and then talk to them about what the alternatives are and make the possibilities of getting better less scary. And if you can identify that, oh, you know what, you might actually be bipolar and be self-medicating a mood disorder, and we have this medication that will help with that, and then the symptoms of their mood disorder go away, all of a sudden sobriety seems like a realistic solution. They're not scared of getting sober and then being mentally ill.
But when addicts are in the throes of their disease, do they really want to be in a controlled environment?
Apparently in Canada they do.
Yeah, well, Canada,
that's like
that's the Canadians, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was
all about nice.
It was an odd.
nice, right?
It was a very odd thing for me to see. I had very because, and I said, it's like in New York, at least you see the neighborhoods, or not anymore, but or probably still, but you'd go through the village and you'd see the hardship.
Right.
There, I almost think it's like sort of burying it under the rug. Even though, listen, I could be wrong. I don't know.
Well, I think there's several key elements that underlie why people become addicted. If we go from abuse into addiction. One, I think that there's some level of suicidal sort of behavior. Suicidality. It's not quite the right
Andrew
word.
has a hard time with words.
Right here, I'll just screw up for half an hour.
We'll give you some coke. You'll talk. You'll get it.
And the number here is 877-877-8. Let me just give the number. 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830.
That's like the weirdest way to say a phone number that I've ever heard.
Suicidality. There we go.
Suicidality.
It's the only way I can remember the number.
Sounds hot.
That 8
Right.
all by itself.
So
Yeah.
people generally, whether consciously or not, are trying to kill themselves at some level of addiction. So
I think that's 100%.
right. I mean, if you're actively using and you know it's destroying your life and killing you, that's suicidal behavior.
Yes.
It's long, drawn out suicide. As Ozzy Osbourne said, suicide solution, right? I mean, that was a metaphor for alcohol. So
I wasn't suicidal. I just wanted to anesthetize.
okay, and then well, I didn't go through all my points. So then
Okay.
the other group that I see is just the escapist element of it.
That was me.
Right. So most people, there's the escapist element as well, where I just want to get away from everything. This allows me not to think, and
Right.
and those people we tend to find have anxiety disorders, where they worry a lot, they have OCD, they have chronic depression, where they have ruminating thoughts. So that's we see a lot of.
I don't think it's always with a mental disorder.
It's not always, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
of the people that we see that have mental disorders, that's what we see. And then the amphetamine abuse we normally see with people with thought disorders, people that are schizophrenic, are just drawn to amphetamines.
Is that so?
So yeah,
I loved cocaine. That's an amphetamine,
that's
right?
an amphetamine. Yeah.
So it's like thought disorders.
Yeah, people that this I'm talking about.
We
mental
did drive
illness.
with you in the car,
Yeah, we
so
know
that's,
you- we know you
that's
have a
fairly
thought
safe to say that you have a thought
That's what I was talking
disorder.
about, like violence and stuff. I always thought about violence.
No, but Andrew, I think if somebody's listening might misunderstand. You're not saying that addiction and mental illness don't coincide. You're not saying that if you're abusing drugs that you're not an addict.
No, I'm saying that I'm saying that there's several things. My point was that there's a lot of use of substances that are self-medicating, that become abusive and then become addiction, that start off from an underlying psychiatric disorder.
Because there's no way heroin.
That was one point I'm making, right? The second point that I was making is that I don't know. Now you blew it for me. What was the point that you just made?
That certain drugs are automatically physically addictive.
No, that was
not my point.
That's a completely different
What kind of
point.
help are you here? Why do I have your?
Well,
I don't think all
It's
addiction
your guide.
is
right?
my guide.
I don't think all addiction is born from mental disorder.
And that's what, yeah.
That was your
absolutely
other
not.
point.
That was
is
my
that,
other point.
Yeah.
He had a lot of points.
A lot
How
of
about
points.
genetic? You think a lot of it's genetic? I think some of it's genetic.
Yeah, I think that there's clearly some people you see you see them take that first drink of alcohol and you can just see it in their eyes.
That was me.
They change.
That was me.
And then
My whole
it goes
family's
off to the
alcoholics.
races. Yeah,
That was
so
me.
There's definitely, and that's alcohol specific. The problem is now we see so much polysubstance abuse where people are coming in on a whole panoplia of different medications, prescription drugs. And then now we have marijuana, which as we've been mentioning is much stronger than it's ever been.
It's ridiculous.
And there's all sorts of types of marijuana. It's not like there's just one strand that sort of acts one way. And so we see a lot of drug-induced dementia and paranoia from marijuana. Crystal meth has changed the whole landscape of amphetamine abuse. We still have cocaine out there, and we still have crack, and we still have alcohol. But less and less do we see alcohol as the primary problem.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's
So it's
amazing.
like a combination.
That's why I said to you in the
Yeah.
car, I'm a dinosaur. I'm one of the rare few people that when you listen to their stories, alcohol is the primary.
Well, a lot of it, I believe, is cultural because we've raised the drinking age to 21, and yet you can get prescription drugs over the internet, mailed to your house.
Yeah, but
whatever
who
age you
has
are.
trouble getting alcohol in this society?
You'd be surprised a lot of people
It's
do.
gotten-
It's a
yeah.
lot easier and you could ask most young people that come in young that it's easier for them to get drugs than it is for them to get
Is that
alcohol.
true?
Yes.
Yeah, you can
That
get-
was so not the case in
No,
my
it wasn't
day,
the case.
boy.
It wasn't the case in mine either. I mean,
The other thing is you can take a prescription drug and it's harder for people to know what you're doing.
you could also rob your parents' cabinet.
Med
there's
cabinets.
Yeah,
Or
there's
rob your parents.
Yeah, but you rob your parents' liquor cabinet too.
Yeah, but
Right.
but
you can take a Vicodin and odds of your parents knowing what's wrong with you versus you drinking a
Well,
bunch of
because you don't
vodka.
smell
Yeah,
the
there's no smell,
odor right there.
Yeah.
That's a
You can go to school on amphetamine and
and again with the marijuana cards, you have 18, 19-year-old people with medical marijuana cards.
Are they giving cards to kids? I know nothing about this.
I
Can
think
an
21.
18-year-old?
21.
21.
Yeah, okay.
21.
But it's easy. They pass it out. I mean, it's not.
Fine, yeah, and I passed this one store. It said the person was in there in a white outfit diagnosing, and then you walk over to, I just looked in the window, but then you just walk over and you buy it. So anybody can just walk in off the street, and this person in this white outfit whoever they are.
It's a real doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, who is a weed dealer anymore? That's like actually like that's like using the public phone.
Well,
Like do they even exist? Like is there a need? Like if you sell weed, you're like just out. You're like you might
Really?
you're like a
Cliche.
bookie. You're like a bookie that doesn't have an online thing. It's
or
like
you've moved up in the hierarchy, and now you're into real distribution.
right. That's you're right. You're driving down from
Right.
with truckloads of
From British Columbia to
right.
the dispensaries.
yeah, but otherwise,
Can they sell to the medical marijuana people? No,
Yes.
They can.
these are where a lot of the laws are very
12
shaky
pounds.
because if you get caught, I mean, there's a whole.
Right, there's something called preemption. So what preemption means is that one law actually supersedes the other. So
Right.
So at the state level, marijuana is still illegal.
Right.
And then at the federal level, marijuana is still illegal.
In most
So,
states, right? I thought California.
states.
Oh, okay.
All states.
So now the growers
right. Or
are illegal. No?
correct. And the people that sell it to the dispensaries are breaking the law by distributing.
Okay.
And even the dispensaries are illegal under federal law,
Right.
even though they've been approved by city municipalities and state law.
So basically, it's
Or not
all
state law,
illegal.
sorry.
At any time,
It's
the
legal,
government could
but
shut
illegal.
No, the government could shut them down at any time.
Right, so federal law supersedes state law, and state law supersedes local law, and federal law supersedes local law as well. So at any time, the DEA can
Yeah.
come down
And they've
shut
done
them
that.
down.
Could.
No, they have.
Well, they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And Obama actually just said that he was going to not have the DEA waste time shutting down dispensaries, and he was going to leave it up to the courts as they fight it out within states' rights. But the fact that California didn't pass the proposition to legalize marijuana has now put the state and the municipalities at war again.
Uh-huh.
Right, so now they're going to push again to try and legalize it at the state level, at which point I imagine it will go to the Supreme Court. So it will be going on for a long time.
I'm sure.
I mean, NORML has been at it since, well, I don't know in normal form, but I think in the mid-'60s, right?
Normal?
Yeah, National Organization for Marijuana Legalization.
I had no idea that was the name of it.
Yeah, that's been the big pro-marijuana, lobbying group for a long
Normal.
time.
You learned something new. I know what NAMBLA is, but not normal.
You know NAMBLA, there you go.
Yes, I
I can't believe you guys didn't know what NORML was. Wow.
would. I'm surprised
I feel-
Vicki didn't know what normal was. Since she's the connoisseur.
She was so high, she didn't know
It was
to.
not normal for me. Let's put it. Well, it was getting normal. Well, it makes sense because get high to get normal. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
And the number here is 877-830-830. It is a weird number, and that's why I say it with the 8, because I couldn't remember it the first couple of weeks. I couldn't say it. Andrew couldn't either, just to my defense. It's not the
Well,
easy.
it's a good string of numbers for the station being AM 830,
30.
but nobody dials the phone with 4 digits.
Exactly. You don't dial a phone right with that
Right.
little 8 standing out by itself. It's very confusing for a pothead like
Right.
me.
Yeah.
That's why we're not getting many calls tonight. 'Cause
Right.
They're all stoned and
Right.
they're like, 8 what?
For you, it would have been
Just
better.
dial
Like,
the same number
Yeah.
over and over
That's
again.
right.
At 888.
for you, it would have been better like 877-420-420.
There we go.
And add the extra 4.
I'm sure some bong salesman in like Idaho's got that number.
Oh, without a doubt. But, it's like 420, 420, 420.
Right? Anyway. So, Mike.
Yes.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
That was the longest delayed intro, I think, in our station's history.
That was nice.
It was, right? You got to just sit and mellow
I was
into
just taking it all in.
right?
With your sugar-free rock star.
Oh, I love this. This is my crack.
So, Mike, for the couple people out there that don't know who you are, how about a quick introduction and some credits that you got going on?
Yeah, I got a Showtime special coming out this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And if you want to check out my website, serialkillerofcomedy.com.
Ooh,
Can't forget that.
right?
Serialkillerofcomedy.com.
Yes.
So tell us about the Showtime thing. How did that come about?
From doing Latin-speaking TV.
Really?
Yeah. It was
So
like
you speak Spanish?
No, I can understand it. I want to be white in my next life. You guys can get away with a lot of stuff. But that's how I got it. I did these episodes, did like 16 episodes on this TV show, and then I got the special.
Huh. So it's in English or Spanish?
It's in English, yeah.
Oh, great. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it was good. It's a good time.
Where did you film it?
We filmed it in Hollywood.
Oh, wow. How big was the audience?
About 200 people.
Wow.
So it's pretty small.
So how were they all fans of yours?
Yeah, a lot of people came out.
So it wasn't like, you know, they had a, because I've watched that Larry David Kirby, you know, with
yeah. I mean,
know.
some of them that you see now, some of them don't even have audiences at all. They add the laughter afterward.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's disappointing.
Like Tom Arnold's.
Yeah.
I saw that. No audience.
Yeah, well,
It was just
there was a
It was
reason for
shocking.
that.
Tom Arnold can't have an audience.
It was unwatchable.
Well, they were scared Roseanne might come in and heckle him. So
Can you imagine that being your legacy? No matter what he ever does.
he's a great guy too.
I know he is a great guy.
you
He
know.
could cure cancer, but
Right.
he's still Roseanne's ex-husband.
But he earned that. He had to be with Roseanne.
Yeah, right.
There was a price to pay for that. He earned that money. Say what you want. He earned that money.
So being a comic, difficult.
Almost impossible.
Almost
ridiculously hard.
I would bet, right?
The last 9 months have been torture.
Yeah. You know, I hear that just like the fear thing with getting up on stage is so much easier if you have a couple drinks first. But
Well, you know what it is for me? It's not so much that. It's actually sitting in the bar waiting to get up. I can't take that.
Right.
Like I have to sit outside or I have to sit in the showroom because I can't take being in the bar. That's the toughest thing for me. Because I never drank when I went on stage or did drugs. It was always after. So,
Right.
yeah, it was never the issue. But yeah, being around it is torture.
Is this any place? Is this like the Comedy Store, Laugh Factory?
and
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and most comics, I think every comic I know is addicted to something. Whether it's pain pills or alcohol or weed or whatever, everybody has some kind of
Themselves.
there's a lot of addiction.
Themselves,
We're
yeah.
going to talk about that when we come back. We're just going to cut out for a break again. It's Clean Radio. You can reach us at
877-830-830.
or on cleanradio.com. That's .cane, right?
.cane.
.net.
Cleanradio.com. It's clean with a K.
Now your hosts for Clean Radio, Andrew and Judah.
You know, it's bad when the intro guy can handle the number in our clean.com statement so much better than we can.
I know.
You would think after 14 weeks we'd be sharper than we are.
877-830-830. There's no better way of saying it. 877-830-830. But here's to the listeners out there tonight, because I know some of them are really in love with Vicki. So Vicki has offered a date. And
Nice, Vicki.
It's win a date. It's
Yeah.
Win a date with Vicki.
It's win a date with Vicki, and Andrew and I will gladly sponsor $25 nice dinner date.
Oh,
Wow. Big
wow.
spenders.
And we'll each do a psychic reading.
And we'll each do a psychic reading.
Hot.
To the person that could guess. Let's see, what's a good trivia question that I don't want people to be able to look up online. So the people that are listening, who's older, Andrew or I? Whoever could guess who's. Oh no, because they could look at the picture.
Thanks a lot.
Well, how do you know I meant it was you?
I
How
love
do
the
you?
way you guys are pimping me out to
You
get
know.
callers.
Hey,
This is lovely.
Vicky,
They
you
got to do
know,
what they got to do.
No, Vicky, because you said that a
the
lot
economy.
of
Times are tough.
you said that a lot of the people that are listening, friends of yours, are scared to call or chicken to call.
Well, I saw some
Yes.
Facebook
and
stuff.
I think
yeah.
some of them. I think somebody like Barbara, who follows you on Facebook, if she lived in
She
LA.
a psychic?
Look, Mike just said he wants to win. So
Yeah,
I'm
Mike.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him pull out his cell phone. He was making for the door to call.
right. He's like, what's that number again? Right.
8:30.
Oh,
Oh my God,
what?
Andrew.
I know, the first
I
time.
can't handle
Yes,
it.
that was
Show
not me.
14,
That was
Andrew.
Andrew. I have
Oh
kept
my
it
God.
I
totally
think I only
clean
got
with a
half
C.
of it out, though.
I heard the whole thing.
Oh, okay, all right.
Your mother is going to be very disappointed.
Oh, at least of my problems. Oh, well. So anyway, we were talking about addiction and using drugs and dealing with the fear of performing, being in the environment.
Yeah,
of
for me, it's
alcohol.
more the environment than anything
Yeah.
else. Not so much the performing or the fear. It was never that. It was the drinking before.
Right.
It was actually the drinking after. You know, because like fans, like after you do a show, the hard thing is you'll be on the road and you'll have a table filled with alcohol, like shots.
And you don't know anybody either.
You don't know
so
anybody.
just- yeah.
And you're just like freaking out. They're trying to force it on you, and that's the tough part.
Right.
It's like getting away from that. But
Yeah,
I have
I
to do a show and just leave now.
Yeah, hanging out with a lot of rock bands in the '90s, it was just impossible. I mean, like you go from the show, from backstage to the hotel, and it's just nothing but drugs all the way through.
Yeah,
Lots
and
of
drinking.
alcohol,
I do
yeah.
believe that's the hardest thing, though, that people have. I always say the hardest thing to recover from is the life. and is the lifestyle, because who are you without that lifestyle?
Well, people say that your choices and what you want change and as you get sober, and I think that that's somewhat true. You know, like you don't want to go and hang out after the show. You want to just go home and have your own space. You know?
Well, it's funny because for me, I'm finding a lot of my old friends intolerable. Is that part of it? Like,
well, because now you actually have to have a conversation with them.
Well, yeah. Now it's like I hang out with you.
Yeah.
What is this?
I think being sober, though, one of the greatest things about it is fellowshipping with people, with other sober people, and actually communicating with them. It's not just sitting around after a gig and everybody getting stoned and sitting there like stupid idiots.
Talking
but it's
about
actually
themselves.
having a conversation about something with value.
Well, I always say if you go into a restaurant, the loudest table is a group of sober people. Like there's nothing like louder than a group of sober people in a restaurant.
And the worst tippers.
And the worst.
Loud? Really?
Yeah, I just find the group of sober people just
No, he doesn't mean loud in the sense of
obnoxious. You mean
No, I
because
mean
they're
just-
actually talking.
They're actually talking.
talking. They're
Yeah.
actually having real conversation.
Involved,
The laughter is
laughing.
real.
Yeah.
I definitely laugh more in sobriety than I ever did when I was high. That's all a fallacy, I think.
And in
about
business,
thinking-
I found
as
it.
Are
you
you
said.
trying to work on the word phallic? And you just said
Hello.
fallacy.
Vicky's got it going on.
Phallic. That's her.
Vicky Phallic.
Right.
That's
her new
Vicky
name.
Phallic.
You know, just
Free
put a
date
woman
with
on the
Vicki
show
Fowler.
right away.
$25.
And I was just going to
Last
say a
week
D
we had
word.
nothing but women. So
Yes,
Yeah.
and none of that was. They were all okay with the microphone.
And they were from Playboy.com. So
They're used to that.
right. Yeah,
Just having that
it was
microphone in
small
their
for
face.
them. Right?
You guys don't know my Facebook persona, but Playboy is...
Nothing.
Got nothing on Vicky.
Yeah.
Oh, Vicky's
I
a
have
player.
seen your Facebook photo, and I was.
My Facebook photo?
Yeah, you had like a photo.
It's
on
not
Facebook.
provocative.
Yeah, well, the one I saw wasn't exactly not, but maybe I got the wrong.
I gotta check it out
He got
later.
the wrong. He actually.
Maybe somebody swapped it out.
Are you stalking Vicky? You're
Yeah,
stalking Vicky,
apparently
aren't you?
so.
Well, I've got someone else.
photo.
Yeah,
That's
I've
that's
got
like-
someone else calling in for the free day.
That's actually,
photo is
that's
hot.
actually really funny because you said it like that photo.
Right.
It's like you didn't even say the photos. You're like that photo.
That he's got
Well,
on his
there is
wall.
that one.
We do
Right.
have another call. Should we take it?
Yeah, sure.
All right, we got Larry on the phone. Larry, welcome to KLEAN Radio.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you
Good.
doing?
How are you?
Good, very nice. Let me ask you a question. Do you think everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous is actually an alcoholic?
No.
Right. Why?
I think it's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think that different people have a lot of different reasons for why they end up in the room. So I think that certainly most people are there for a reason, and a lot of
Right.
it has to do with drug abuse or alcoholism. Sometimes I think that whether or not people have actually crossed into actually becoming a full-blown alcoholic, that necessarily isn't the case. Some people have just been abusing alcohol, and some people later find they can normalize their drinking. So I think it would be an overstatement to say that everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous that shows up in a meeting is an alcoholic. I think one of the good things about Alcoholics Anonymous is it's a place to go and find out whether or not you're an alcoholic or not. Odds are, though, I'd say if you end up in a room at AA,
Something's wrong.
Something's going on.
I saw
Right.
Bridesmaids last
yeah.
night, and Jill Clayburgh is going to speak at a meeting, and
God rest her soul.
And, yes, and Kristen Wiig says to her, "But Mom, you're not an alcoholic," and she said, "Well, that's only because I never took a drink." And meanwhile, she was
Right.
going to the meetings and she was doing service.
But there's a
and all
lot of
this
truth
stuff.
that there's a lot of people that come from families of alcoholics and they don't drink their whole life, and then with 20-something they pick up a drink and all of a sudden they're off to the races. So, and it's different for everybody.
I think it's a great question.
It's
though.
definitely a great
Right.
question.
It's something that Andrew and I constantly are talking about is, but you're
Yeah.
there, something got you there. If you're in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, something's not going well.
Well, Bob Forrest, who was one of our guests, who everyone knows from VH1 Celebrity Rehab, his claim is that about 50%, I think this is an over-exaggeration, but 50% of the people in LA, which I think you have to separate from the rest of the
Right.
country's AA meetings, are there because they're lonely.
But again, it's
And I
Right.
think-
I mean,
and I think-
because there's a lot of there's a lot of alcoholics.
Oh, they're
And-
absolutely.
yes, there are.
You know, there's-
Everywhere.
And the
There's more
truth,
every day.
and the truth be told,
Well, no. Well, but I mean, like, there's, there's a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, and for some reason, I can't fathom that many people,
that would be
having
alcoholic?
this issue. Yeah.
Well, the estimates are that 12% of the population are actually alcoholics. So that's quite a lot of people. I mean, LA County is how many people?
A lot.
26 million, I think.
Is
something
it that
like
many?
yeah.
So right. So just 10% is 2.6
6
million
million,
people. So how many people are in AA? Certainly nowhere near to that many.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot more alcoholics than we see.
And Larry, thank you
in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Larry, thank you for the question. It is a great question, and it's one of those things. If you're there, it doesn't really matter. You know, if you're the alcoholic and you have the problem, it doesn't. What are you going to do?
My thing is that nothing can go wrong with you by going to a meeting.
Right.
I mean, you know, and certainly it's always good to question there's most people that come to AA have had some sort of major consequence related to drugs or alcohol. They've either gotten in a fight or they've had a DWI.
I had 3 of them.
Right?
Fights?
Three DUIs.
Oh.
Wow.
3.
So do you have the
that's a big
breathalyzer in
heads
your
up.
car?
No, not now, but yeah, I had 3.
That's because you're getting a new car.
I'm done.
You're done. That's
done.
Well, that's definitely a heads up that something's wrong. I mean, most people that have a problem with alcohol or drugs, they've shown an inability to control it on their own. And there is a big movement towards moderation and drug use, which is another public health model that says that people through a form of cognitive behavioral therapy can examine their usage and then monitor it.
I am not a believer.
Well, my thing
couldn't
is,
do that.
if you're working that hard,
Right. It's like
I couldn't do that.
I couldn't do it either,
tried.
and I think
I am an addict.
you know it's so funny. Why mess? And you and I, this is where there is a healthy medium to what you speak a lot about with diagnosing people's real issues and taking risks on people's life. Because when you come out with these types of groups and stuff, you're taking a risk on people's life. It's no different than Passages Rehab. You know, if they offered other models, Passages, if you offered, okay, we offer the 12 steps, but if the 12 steps aren't for you, we offer holistic steps, or we offer native, I was talking to one of the kids, it's in your treatment center, and he's telling me that when he leaves, he's going to go to some Native American, some Buddha, whatever it was.
Right. Well, we have Buddhist recovery.
Buddhist
track,
recovery, and I was like, that's great. Whatever gets you.
I mean, my thing is that the central, once you've passed abuse and you become an addict, you then are in the disease model of addiction.
Right.
So you've either have a strong psychological or a physical addiction to the substance, or both, psychological and physical. And at that point, you're in the progressive state of that disease. You can't go back.
No, it's the pickle.
Yeah. At that point,
cucumber.
right. At that point, your tolerances build up. You're going to quickly rebuild that tolerance if you go back to that substance. You're triggered by things easily. It's affecting your work life, your personal life. You're an addict. You have all the classic symptoms. So if you're at that level, really sobriety and abstinence is really the only choice. Now, the one thing I would qualify that with is that I don't think that abstinence, as some people believe, means being off of all drugs completely. I think that there's a lot of important medications that some people should still be on.
I also think that abstinence isn't enough. I think if for me, if I'm not working a program of recovery, then I'm in as much danger as if I'm using.
Right, and so the issue of a program of recovery, right, which is traditionally sort of known as AA is one of them. There's rational recovery. There's several others, right? There's SOS. There's Buddhist recovery programs now. So what we do is at our treatment center we say, okay, we're going to get you sober. We're going to give you psychoanalytic therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. We're going to work with you on that level. But there's this whole other part, this social component, where you have to join a fellowship and work with other people that have experienced addiction and have a good social network and rebuild a new social life. And so we say you have to do one form of that. So if you're not going to go to AA, you've got to do some Buddhist recovery that's for people in sobriety, or you've got to do rational recovery, or you've got to do SOS, or one of these other
And God, I hope it works.
Yeah. And my whole thing is to get the real reason that we do that is to get people past the resistance of not wanting to join something, of not wanting to involve themselves socially beyond whatever little corner they've stuck themselves in.
There's no way that I think one can succeed in sobriety doing it alone. I mean, they always say this is a we program, but it totally is.
No, I think it's impossible. I think
it's one addict helping another, and without that connection,
in some form,
it can't work.
In some form, well, it goes back to almost any. If you look at any religions, or just to pray alone, if you're like just a solitary prayer in the middle, you want to be praying around people. Right. There's something to the
use
group.
Your hands. Look at him.
Right. But I also want to say that I don't think that you have to be sober to be able to help people get sober.
No, which is one of the oldest myths, which has driven me crazy for years.
Wait. What are you saying?
That you don't have to be sober to help people get sober. I think there's a lot of very qualified, good mental health practitioners that can get people sober and deal with their psychiatric or behavioral health problems that aren't sober themselves.
Yeah, he wrote a chapter in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. His name is Dr. Silkworth.
Yeah, right.
And he saved thousands of lives by his statements. And I know a lot of times that comes from I think that's a lot of fear for me. I believe there's a lot of fear from the people in the rooms in any 12-step group that think, oh, we're the only ones that could help. No, there are other people.
I mean, look, you don't go get your bipolar illness cured by somebody that's
bipolar. Right.
That would be funny to watch.
It might be. Except I don't think anybody would ever stop talking. It would just be talking over each other. So
it's interesting though, because in the rooms I've come across a number of people who are therapists who have said that they were treating people for addiction while they were going home and using, and the shame and the guilt and the horrors, their self-hatred for living that double life. I don't know that they're really serving their patients to the best of their ability.
Well, those were people that obviously
they were addicts.
Right?
That's what I wanted to draw the line here. You're talking about people who use but who aren't addicts. That's a different situation.
They take away the word use. I mean, my former therapist in New York, who ran one of the biggest rehabs, his name is Trisha Tia, who ran Arms Acres, is a normal.
She's a normie. Normie. That's
but she has helped thousands and thousands upon thousands of people.
The psychiatrist that works at KLEAN with KLEAN, he drinks, and I've seen him drink. He has like half a glass of wine, and that's it.
Now, what's the percentage of people staying sober? Like in these, have they done a study on that?
There's been lots of outcome studies on all sorts of different programs, and there's a lot of debate about it. AA won't really sort of officially release their numbers. There's been 2 internal studies that AA did. They gave a couple different results. The best results that I've read that seem to be real is that within the first year, 80% of the people relapse that come to a meeting in AA. And then in the second year, those numbers reverse. So if you make it into your second year, 80% of the people that have made it past 1 year will keep staying sober for a period of time.
Wow.
The other thing is that what I think of when I think of alcoholism or drug addiction as once you're in that disease process, is that relapse is also a natural process of that disease. It's almost inevitable that most people will relapse. Statistically, we know that the vast majority of people that get sober will relapse at some point. So one of the things that we like to do with relapse prevention and relapse prevention education is to minimize the impact of a relapse. So for whatever reason, somehow people are triggered, something happens, a death of a spouse, and for whatever reason they slip, that they have information and tools to reconnect and not just sort of blow it all. And that's one sort of the things that I worry about with AA is this idea that if you start using again, then you've lost all your time and you're back to day one, and that, you've lost all this value. And my thing is, no, you haven't. You've just had a couple days of drinking, and let's get you back on track.
Which is actually a great point.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's something I want to talk about.
And we're going to talk about that after the break. We're in the studio with Vicki Abelson.
Do you or someone you know need help overcoming addictive disorders?
So we're going out and in. We got a new engineer tonight,
and who's actually great. Who's just
great. We're just working out our new.
Yeah, we're working out the kinks, and we're in the studio with Vicki Abelson, the lovely and talented, and
soon to be on a date,
and somebody's stranger.
$25
win a date with Vicki Abelson.
$25. That's not even. And you notice how many people have called in for that.
$25 isn't even like a Groupon. I got to tell you right there. That's how bad this stuff is.
Not one phone call. I think that's very telling.
Carnies.
Story of my life.
Carnies.
Yeah,
That's where the
Thank
date
you.
is.
That's where
Please, the subway
that's where you
track,
take
the
your
subway card.
$45 date?
Yes, and so that way people can see you. It's on Sunset Boulevard. You don't have to be that
Lovely.
nervous.
Yeah, I love this.
And,
You can run
Yeah,
out
not
into traffic
one
in
call.
case he's crazy.
We got to take this
Yeah.
break. We'll be back to Clean Radio. Welcome back to Clean
I think
Radio.
that's an old card. Did it say sober?
What?
Oh,
No.
Okay.
Whatever. Anyway, welcome back, everybody, to Clean Radio.
I love this song. Yeah, Afro Man.
We were just having a heated debate.
Well, I mean, which I think is great. I think that's the point in the show, is that for years, I had thought, you have thoughts, and I think sometimes in many 12-step groups, people are scared to share their thoughts. They're scared to ask these questions.
They're question the programming.
They're question the program, like somehow you're blasphemous and you'll be expelled. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions.
Well, the funny thing is, they say, the most important thing is this issue of willingness. You have to want it. And I've seen people go to like strange, extraordinary lengths to show their willingness, and yet it still hasn't worked for them. And and when you're desperate, and when you have an addiction, and you're at the point where you're sort of hit the bottom, you're looking for whatever will help and whatever works.
My experience is very different from what you just described. I've never seen anybody afraid to say or ask anything.
I have seen tons of people.
That was me.
Well,
I don't want to ask anything.
Yeah, I have
could
seen
give a shit.
Really?
Oh.
Ooh.
I have
just got you.
I mean, I have seen tons of people just scared to, say to somebody, you hear a constant thought when you first get sober. You hear somebody say to you, "Do a 90 and 90," right? And you say to them, "Well, why? Why should I go to 90 meetings in 90 days?" And if somebody's honest, they'll say, "Well, because somebody told me to do that." Mm-hmm. There's this constant. And I'm not saying I disagree with somebody going to 90 meetings in 90 days. I just think, it's okay to question what is being said. And I had a fear of that. I think a lot of people...
That's how I was.
I think a lot of people have a fear of that.
Well, it's a
That's just my experience.
I just didn't believe it.
Well,
I didn't believe that it worked.
Well, there's two sides to this coin. One is that there's a lot of information that people need to know if they're an addict or an alcoholic about addiction and about alcoholism. And the other side of it is this idea that when you are an addict or an alcoholic, you're kind of paranoid and suspicious about everything. Like, you're ambivalent about giving up what, for a long time has been something that at one point was working for you.
Your lover.
Maybe now isn't, right? Right. A lot of people have drunk themselves or used drugs into the point where they're isolated and alone, so they don't have other friends. The one big thing that I think is interesting about Alcoholics Anonymous is that this concept of attraction, not promotion, which is put in there, I think, specifically to get away from the paranoia that people feel when they go and approach a group that they don't know.
And also the gospel of it.
I don't think that has anything to do with why it's... I think the reason for it is that if people associate themselves with a specific group and then they go out, it speaks badly for the fellowship.
Well, that's the anonymity part.
It shows that it doesn't work.
That's the anonymity part.
Yeah, but it's a promotion rather than... Attraction rather than promotion, because if you're promoting it...
No, I think this is just...
They're two different issues.
I think they connect. Well, I think they connect.
No, but my personal experience with attraction, not promotion, it's no different than... It's not... We don't proselytize. We don't go out on the street and say to people, "Hey, come on over here." We're here and we're living a good life if you so choose to live a life like we're living. To me, that's all I ever thought attraction, not promotion was. It's, if you like the way I'm living my life and you want to stop drinking, come on board. Yeah.
But I think it's also, when you were saying people are afraid to question it, and why do it as suggested is because, well, this is how it works.
Right. Well, no, I don't disagree with you of this is how it works. But half of the stuff you hear isn't written in this is how it works.
Yeah, see, I was forced to go.
Right, it's not in. It's not
So this is the other issue. A lot of people think that AA doesn't have a coercive element to it, that it's all voluntary and people go on their own.
I was forced to go.
And the truth of the matter is, half or more of people that are exposed to AA are actually done through a coercive element, be it a court system.
I had to go.
From DUI or DWI, whatever state you're in, or through some other court-ordered mandate, family violence or some other issue. So there is a coercive element to this so-called, voluntary self-help program. So that is an issue. The other thing is, though, is that people that have problems with drugs or alcohol are in denial, and they're in denial about their a lot of things. They're in denial about their behavior, about the real effects, about their addiction. A lot of them are in denial about whether or not they really even have a problem. And it's amazing to me how easily someone can sit there and say, I smoked 3 rocks of crack cocaine last night. I only drank a 12-pack, and I don't think I have a problem.
I think most people walk in and don't think they have a problem.
Yeah. It's I think that people don't want to have a problem, but somewhere in the back of their brain they know they do.
I think also a lot of people come in to learn how to manage it. They think if they come in, they can figure out how to manage using.
How do you get into AA?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I got into AA. I was forced in. That's a really good question. I'm trying to remember back because I would go to a meeting in Brooklyn. I was probably in an outpatient program in New York, and they recommended it to me. They recommended it to my family that I go to AA meetings. And I remember sitting there, and one of my biggest pet peeves when I would go there, and now it's a pet peeve because I hate when people say it when they go, I'm back. Like they have 90 days back. They have 10 years back. I'm like, and I used to sit in these meetings going, oh, you could come back. I literally would sit in these meetings. I was 18 and a half years old. I'd be like, I could come back. I'll go out and I'll come back. And that's my favorite analogy about addiction is it's like having sex with a gorilla. You're not done till the gorilla is done. And you don't get to choose when
that wasn't the thing that Mike was thinking about. Mike was thinking about that gorilla really taking advantage of it.
But you don't get to choose.
I would rape that gorilla.
But that's the scary thing. You don't get to choose when you come back. And it's this is a guy that I used to love in New York. His name was Good Early Direction Brian. He was sober 30 years, now probably 40 years at this point. And he used to hear people share, if I go out and drink, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. He would walk up to them and say, if you're going to do all those things, you're not an alcoholic. And they'd look at him and they go, why not? He goes, because you got manageability.
Right.
And he goes, me, if I go out, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's me.
And and I think that's the, I want until that was my first step. That was I realized I used to hear people say in meetings, and I would hear them say it's the first drink that got you drunk, and I would literally say, no, it's not. It's not the first. That makes absolutely no sense to me. The first drink gets you drunk, and they used to say try getting drunk without it. And it finally it clicked this time. It clicked this time that I can't get drunk without the first drink. But it took me. That was the first step to me. I realized I can't get drunk, and it took so many years to figure that out. For that to make sense, because so many things I was hearing weren't making sense because I wasn't ready. Yeah. And I'm not saying, by the way, I think I'm the biggest fan. The 12 steps saved my life. It saved my family's life. I just. When I first got sober, I thought it was my sponsor's job to give me absolution. Right. I thought the fourth step was penance, and my sponsor's job, Steve, at the time, was to say, Judah, you are absolved. And it's not.
Well, there is a lot of sort of underlying Christian dogma to AA, but that's a whole other topic.
I wasn't even saying that.
The other thing that I wanted to say, though, was that, our caller was saying, do I think that everyone in AA is an alcoholic? And my point is that it really doesn't matter.
You're there.
People don't have to become sober because they're addicted. Right? People can become sober because they're smart enough to realize that they've been abusing substances, and it's not a healthy lifestyle.
I think if they put the 12 steps and 12 traditions on the subway cars in New York and on in every post office, in every restaurant, we'd have a much better world. I think if everybody was working a program of recovery, if everybody followed the 12 steps and the 12 traditions in everything they did, I mean, it's who could lose? Who couldn't gain from working the 12 steps and by practicing those principles in all of our
principles in your lives. which is what Bill
doesn't benefit
Wilson
from that?
originally wanted.
Right.
You know.
And we've had this debate a little bit on the show, and for me, there's a difference between religious and dogmatic sort of growth and development, and just moral development.
It's a spiritual program. It has nothing to do.
And
To me, it has nothing
spiritual
to do with
development.
religion.
That's a whole other realm, right? So spiritual, moral, whatever. So I think a lot of people think that the only type of moral development that exists is through organized religion. That to be a moral person, you have to be religious. And
Who thinks that?
A lot of people.
Religious zealots
Yeah, a
think
lot of
that.
Well, we live in a.
I mean, I think a lot of people don't even realize that religious development and moral development are completely different. That you can actually be more moral and be an atheist than someone.
Relax.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
joking.
more.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I think you can.
No, I agree with you.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, look at these born-again preachers that are out having sex with boys and prostitutes and using crystal meth. I know a lot of atheists that don't do that kind of stuff.
Religion breeds a lot of intolerance.
But I believe so does
And repression.
anything. But it's anything done like that breeds it. It's no different than, it's like if you have a sponsee call you on the phone. If you're sponsoring somebody and they call you on the phone and they say, "Hey, I'm having a really rough day," there's a few ways of answering that. There's a few ways, and we were talking about this before, about how we deal with things. You could say, I love you, you're human, and you're going to go through these things, and it's a tough road, and I'm right there with you. Or you could say to them, read page 462 before you go to bed. And a lot of people do that type of stuff. And I believe, and I'm not saying can't be helpful, but some people just want to be, they want to be told that they're going to be okay. And I think
everybody wants to be told.
Everybody wants to be told.
Okay.
And I believe a lot of people that there's no difference, because I've met tons of people, and your experience is obviously different because you've met some of the kindest people, obviously. But I've met a lot of people that I would call them on the phone.
I'm in a less dogmatic program.
Right, and they would go, what step you working? And I'd be like, the step where I want to kill you right now, because all I want to do, and I was working the steps, and I'm working, but it doesn't mean because you're in the program you're not going to have a good day. And that's what I'm talking about. Stuff like people say, well, if you're living in fear, then you're not in faith. No, my God's big enough that I could have fear. It's my God or if I believe in a higher power, that I could say I'm in fear. And I think there's a lot that's what I'm referring to. It's like Mike is fairly new. He's got 9 months sober. You're allowed to be crazy.
But can't AA become addictive, though?
This came up. Wait, before we go to AA and addiction, can I just address this?
Yes.
Because this came up today about fear. A friend of mine is in Japan. He married a Japanese woman, and he's there, and there's a lot of fear going on in Japan. And he was talking about he's turning Japanese. Yeah,
Nice.
and he's unemployed, and his wife is unemployed, and so he did on the share about fear. And my sponsor has taught me that a miracle is just a shift in perception. Fear is a worthless emotion. The only thing that comes with fear is paralysis.
Right.
And how do we get out of fear? We can choose to not be afraid at any given moment. How? I can't think myself into right thinking, but if I take an action, any action, if I wash the dishes, if I just change what I'm doing in that moment, it stops the thinking, and then by the time I come back to it, that thing is gone.
But imagine if somebody told you that when you had 3 days sober.
No, of
Right,
course
right.
No,
That's
I
what I'm
hear
saying.
That. At 3 days
Right.
sober, I can't hear that.
And
What are you kidding
at
me?
9 months sober, you might not be able to hear it.
No,
Right.
at 9 months I couldn't hear
Right.
it.
If somebody
Absolutely
gave you, you'd be like this. You'd be
No.
looking at
Yeah.
them like, what time is it? And
But
it's a cat.
Let's let Mike talk a little bit. He's
But at 3 days sober, at 9 months sober, what I might say is, if you told me that you were in fear, hey, do you want to come with me over and let's go and just get somebody into action rather than talk them into action, take them into action.
Now, can't people become obsessed with going to these meetings? If it becomes too much of one thing, is that a bad thing?
Well, one of the things that I think a lot of people think is that AA is an ongoing lifestyle where it's okay to go to 2 meetings every day for the rest of your life. And if you actually read the big book, it talks about it
Being a bridge back to life.
Yeah, you have to kind of transcend that.
First of all, when the book started, they didn't have 2 meetings a day.
Right.
If they had one a week, you were lucky, and if you were lucky if you could actually get to it because it was such a far ride away.
And still in most parts of the United States, States, there's only one a week.
Right, and the
so-
real service was in those days that what they got to do was they used to get go to hospitals, go to
Take a meeting to
take a
people.
meeting to people,
Yeah.
go visit people, and be of service.
Yeah, because in Connecticut, I have a friend who does AA there, and it's a completely different
Yes.
deal.
Yeah.
It's not a lifestyle.
It's out
It's
in
very
LA.
hidden. It's very
Only
hidden.
in LA.
And
is
only in
the
LA,
lifestyle.
and in New York, much less, because in LA, people constantly go to me, "What meeting are you going to tonight?" And I'm like, you realize it's not a club,
Yeah, right.
and it is a very clubby, which is great. People need it. I think this 12 Steps in LA is amazing, and I think it's great. But
I definitely think that a lot of people use AA to deal with loneliness instead of finding other ways to, reach
I
out
don't see a
and-
downside.
I don't think it's a downside. I'm just saying I think that that's
you
one of
are.
the-
It is a downside if you're living in fear and you're not
Well,
living
you're
your
becoming
life.
addicted to
and
the
you're not
actual
living your
process.
life.
I don't think there's any. I don't see. I know a lot of people who go to meetings every single day, who go to multiple meetings. They are the most functional people I know. They are not in any way being brought down by their presence in meetings. I don't think there's such a thing as going to too many meetings personally.
No. Well, that's what we're totally okay with. Contrary opinion. Everything in my. I mean, I've seen it on both ways. I've seen it. You see people that we used to go to a meeting every day at noon. Andrew and I, in L.A. Some people could have, some people benefit that they would go to the meeting at noon, they would go to a meeting at 8. But at some point, you would hope, obviously these people are functioning, but if you're not functioning, if you're not working, and you're just going to 2 meetings a day, that for some people that might not be living.
The only
Although-
people I know who go to
I
2
have
meetings a
friends
day
like
aren't
that,
functioning are people
that are
who are in
ghosts.
early sobriety. People who go to a lot of meetings late in sobriety, everyone I know has jobs, have lives, have families, they live their life, but they do it very richly. The people I know.
Once again, this is something where you can't just generalize.
Right.
I think that everybody's different, and that different people have different needs.
Right,
And,
and
and that the fact that people can remain sober no matter what, one way or the other,
Is the miracle.
is the most
Yeah.
important thing first. Because without it, a lot of these people are going to end up dead.
I went to 2
So-
meetings a day. I mean, my first year, but I had nothing else going on, but that was what I needed. It was my rehab. I couldn't go to rehab, so I'd go to 2 to 3 meetings a day. I'd go to AA clubhouses, and I would just hang out there, and I would drink coffee, and, life started to get into progress, but I couldn't do that when I started going to college.
The other thing is, I think that AA can only do so much. There's a lot of people that have a lot of problems that the issues cannot be addressed in AA. People with severe character defects of personality disorders, it doesn't stem from their addiction,
Well, it says that in the book.
but stem from early childhood trauma.
Yeah, see, I go to an
or
alcohol
other problems.
therapist. I go to like an actual
A
therapist.
therapist that specializes in addiction.
Yeah, and that
Right.
really helped me because I do go to meetings and I do
Right.
have a sponsor, but it didn't really help the way this
Right.
helps.
Well, sponsors aren't even in the big book, which is, this whole concept that like the sponsor is supposed to be this person that's going to somehow lead you through everything and fix it all for you is just wrong. And I think
But that's
that a
why
lot
when
of,
people hear, I hear them say, I fired my sponsor, like you hired him in the first place.
right. So and I think that since Alcoholics Anonymous started, behavioral health has come a long way. We know so much more about therapy, about the diagnosis of mental illness, about the diagnosis and treatment of addiction and alcoholism. We know so much more about how abuse affects people prior to addiction. So there are real quality therapists and doctors, psychiatrists that are available for people to get. People often ask me, why should I go to a treatment center when I can just go to AA? And I'm like, because treatment center, there's very little that we do in the treatment center that's similar to AA. I mean, it's the same message, get sober, and we bring people to meetings in the evenings if they want to go, and we certainly introduce them to AA. But there's so much therapeutic and diagnostic work that is done with a client in a treatment center.
See, I like
can't
treatment
be done
centers.
in AA. It just can't be done.
Yeah, see, if I was to do it all over again, I tell all my friends that are
Right.
going through it now, I said I would have went to like a lockdown place for like 3 months.
And unfortunately, the real problem is it's resources. If you have a lot of money, you're going to be able to afford a treatment center that can give you that kind of attention with that kind of quality of therapist.
But don't you think it's if you want to get sober, no matter where you're at?
I think ultimately,
You
always
have to want it, right.
I
Yeah.
don't care what anybody says ultimately always it comes down to a person saying, I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm not going to use and I'm not going to drink. If the person doesn't get to that point, whether it's during being in a treatment center or when they attend AA and during being in AA, they will never get sober. Until you can say, you're right, that is the wrong intro. That's the sober living facility. We are now a treatment facility.
Licensed.
Yeah, licensed.
Licensed.
We've actually been licensed for 3 months now.
Is everything all right with your phone over there?
Yeah, I
Look
just
at
had
your
a
bad
battery.
self.
You're a heavy tweeter. I know. What was it?
No, I am not of the tweet universe.
I just started tweeting.
Pathetic.
A Twitter?
I have 5,000
I just started
Facebook friends.
yesterday.
I only have 300 tweet followers. Follow me on Twitter, Vicki at Vicki
You have
Abelson.
300
It's pathetic. I
followers?
have 5,000
Okay,
Facebook
just so you know,
friends,
that's
and they will
200.
not.
That's 200. Like 94 more than me.
Yeah, but I use the thing, and I just started. And you know what kills me about Twitter is like all the famous people, like they talk to each other and they ignore everybody else. It's like being like a bathroom attendant at the Oscars. Like you get to hear overhear all their stuff, but they won't talk to you.
It's the one job I haven't had.
By the way, just so you know,
Me neither.
Vicki's salon, and I think it's an amazing thing. I think it's, I learned in sobriety that I could write. And
Cool.
yes,
Me too.
and get paid for it ever so occasionally, and ever so. But what I think is so important is that it's such an amazing creative outlet. Yeah.
Did we talk about this on the air? I think we talked about this before we went on the air. I'm not sure about the coincidence that it's not a coincidence that I wrote my book that I'm sober 9 years.
Yeah, we
No,
spoke
no,
about
this is
it. We
the
spoke
first
about
one
that
on
on
the
the
air?
radio.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I wanted to make
I
that
think
point.
it's
'cause
so.
It's been memorialized.
But I think it's so important to have that creative outlet in sobriety. And he's got a great laugh, Mike.
Right?
He's got like an unexpected laugh. Like his laugh doesn't
We're
look
gonna
like
have
it
to have
comes
Mike
out of
back.
him.
I feel like Mike's got like
Yes.
holding back a little bit.
I got to tell you, though,
I'm being nice. I'm taking it in.
Mike, the next time you
I'm
come,
learning a lot.
It will be when you have your new car, and
right? Tell us
That way-
about you got rear-ended,
I
right?
got rear-ended on the 22 2 weeks ago.
Total your car,
Totaled my car.
and nothing happened to you.
nothing happened to me. I'm unbreakable. It's from all the drugs I did.
what kind of car
I
was
doubt
it?
that, but
It was a Hyundai Accent.
Wow.
wow,
Destroyed.
What are the odds of living through that?
You had to see the car to believe it.
Really?
Yeah, like even the cop was like, I can't believe you just walked out of this. My phone was
Wow.
thrown out. I said, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm going to die like maybe a hooker stabbed me or something like that. I'm going to go out really weird and sad and, be like an old guy biting a hooker and I'll just be shanked while I'm sleeping.
You wish.
I'm going to go like that.
And then she's gonna open your wallet and find nothing.
Nothing.
Right?
You die. You die hard. You die hard. You no pay.
Yeah, it could happen.
Well, you were telling us in the car. It's funny. He was telling us in the car he got carjacked 3 times, but he actually didn't get carjacked.
I got carjacked once.
Carjacked once, and
I
then
had
you had
2 other
prevention
people.
with a gun.
And Vicki actually called you out on that.
Gun and fun rhyme.
She actually goes, so you've only had your car taken once.
I had my car taken once,
The
but
other
I
two-
had 2 other people that tried to carjack.
That you
me.
think. The
The
guy
second one was a definite.
He might have just wanted to throw a brick
Should
at
have
you.
hit him.
Yeah.
Did you try to hit the bicycle guy?
almost only
I would
counts
hit
in
him. The
horseshoes.
guy was
That's what I
so
was
angry.
okay,
Back
and, like,
into him.
it was okay. It was not good. Like, let's put it that way. He was either gonna try and take my money, if not my car. He was definitely going for my money. So it was New Orleans. New Orleans is it's like
It's
the
violent.
Wild West down
It
there.
is violent.
There was more when I was there. There were more murders there than anywhere else. It was the murder capital.
Capital
of
of
the
the
world.
United States.
What
yeah.
an honor.
They would have the police would shoot each other, on the corners for gang territory for drug sales in New Orleans.
Really?
Well, they were paying the local police department. The average salary was $11,500.
I'd be shooting.
Right?
I'd be a shooting
So you
fool.
figure, right? You give somebody a gun, you pay them $11,500 a year, and tell them, go out there and risk your life. You don't think they're going to get involved in organized
No,
crime?
I'd be shooting.
Yeah, right. They would actually call in the EMTs, and then they would hold up the ambulances and take all the drugs up.
That's ghetto.
Right?
It's like
That's
ghetto
pretty hardcore,
squared.
right? Yeah. So New Orleans had its problems. But it's a great place, and it's definitely coming back. So.
I've never been there.
It's a great city.
Are you going to take me there one time?
I will. Yeah. Actually, I'm going down probably in about a month.
So we're going to go together.
Yeah, we can go down. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
As long as it's not on a Sunday night.
So we got about 6 minutes left. I want to give our guests a chance to sort of plug themselves and so they don't drink. out Mike likes the dirty jokes. Mike,
I love
Mike,
that.
By the way, Mike, by the way, is one of the more raunchy comedians. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Yeah, I wouldn't say raunchy, but yes, edgy.
Edgy. Is
edgy.
that's the new raunchy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Edgy.
They don't even call it edgy anymore. They call it Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks was mild.
Bill Hicks is a choir boy compared to me.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So you're like Dice?
It's different.
Not quite that organized.
Kind of like Don Rickles-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Don Rickles, I mean, I love Don Rickles.
Yeah.
And I
it's-
encourage
it's-
anybody to see that movie, the Mr. Warmth
I love it.
movie
I have it at the house.
that
It's my favorite
John
comic.
Landis directed.
My favorite comic.
Have you seen this?
He's got 30 seconds left
Yes.
to give his plugs.
Serialkillerofcomedy.com, and I just started Twitter, Midget Demon.
Midget Demon.
Yeah, on Twitter.
At Midget Demon.
I just started yesterday. I love it.
And when's the Showtime special coming out?
Probably November.
November. Can't wait to see that. What local gigs you got coming up? Anything?
I'm out of town a lot now.
Yeah?
I'm doing the Improv June 5th, Melrose Improv.
Ah, I'll have to come down and see
Yeah,
you.
I'm doing it
actually-
with your wife.
Oh, my
I
wife
said
will be
I
on?
said I'd do the show, yeah.
Oh, you're doing my wife's show.
I'm doing your wife's show.
Look at that. How great is that?
And Vicki?
So-
And Vicki, you can find me at VickiAbelson.com, VickiAbelson, and follow me on Twitter because I'm so pathetic. VickiAbelson. Come follow me on Twitter.
How many followers? How many people do you have?
It's pathetic. I have 5,000 Facebook friends and 300 Twitter followers, and I had to beg today. I got 20 more today because I went on Facebook and begged.
I saw. That's why.
I
saw
begged.
that.
You got to
begged
say
and
the
pleaded.
right things. You got to be provocative. I know you
Oh,
can do it.
no. Oh, you obviously are not my Facebook
No,
friend.
but
Have a
Andrew.
picture of your vagina
Andrew-
on Twitter. You'll get people.
they just don't come a whole lot more provocative on Facebook and Twitter than I.
Do something crazy.
No, you do not know of what you speak. You will come,
Bestow
child.
upon us.
You will,
Bestow
you
upon
will
us.
come, child, and you will see.
You have a new fan. I mean, you have challenged. You have challenged.
Well, we
Mike.
I do
know-
not.
we know-
And I am the queen of snark. I am the self-proclaimed whore of all media. Yes, that is
You and-
me.
isn't that
Whore of all
Well,
media. That's hot.
Vicky,
I am the
we're
whore of
gonna,
all media.
I'm gonna empower you. I'm gonna empower you by giving you the $25 so you can take Mike on the date.
Yes.
Whore of all media. That is good.
You're just gonna have to pick Mike up.
You have to pick me up.
And
Call us now.
I'm sure in Tarzana you could like eat a feast for $25.
So if people are interested in your writing
and how
salon,
pathetic.
how do they
Nobody
get
calls
The
it that.
salon.
It's called Women Who Write.
right?
Nice.
And if you go to my website, VickiAbelson.com, there's a contact me. And if you're a songwriter, singer-songwriter, if you write, contact me. If you are just a woman who enjoys being read to or being sung to, then contact me. And if you're in the LA or New York area, it's a bi-coastal
Oh, very
salon.
cool. So you're in New York and you have a place in New York where you hold
Yeah,
it?
that's where home is. My
Yeah.
place is still there, yeah.
How much time do you spend in LA versus New York?
Mostly LA. My kids are in school here, but I've been doing the salon in New York in December and in July.
I gotta tell you, I think
those
it's
are,
really
like,
cool.
Two of the hardest months in
Yeah.
New York, like when it's freezing
Super
cold,
cold
and
and
really
super
humid.
hot.
But a
This is
great
fun.
time to
Here's-
be read to inside.
Yeah, true. There we go.
It's perfect.
Captured
Last
audience.
July it was 105. It was the hottest day in New York. The day of my salon. It was 105 degrees. July, whatever it was,
Right.
27th or something. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Women were walking in. They were dripping. It was-
Schwitzing, as we call it.
but it was air conditioned, so it was lovely.
So we got like a minute and 30 seconds, Judah. I'd just like to thank you for co-hosting our 14th show with me.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
And you're going to Mexico this week, so I pray that
I'm-
you're back here
I'm going
Sunday
to
Don't
night.
get abducted.
Yeah.
Don't get abducted.
I'm going to Mexico
carjacked.
City.
We all thought you got abducted tonight, by the
don't
way.
understand.
I got really nervous when I couldn't find you at the AM/PM when we pulled off to the side of the road.
Well, that was just the
Yes.
scariest
I
place
said to you,
on
I
the
said, it's too
planet.
white to be down
Yes,
there.
and I thought of the movie The Vanishing, and one of my worst nightmares was being without you, Andrew, my bear.
Well, you're gonna have,
And
well, you're gonna have 2 days without me while I'm in Mexico City. So if
I
I
know-
survive that,
you could survive anything. That's
survive
what your
anything.
shirt should say.
it's probably gonna be like the most like glamorous high-end trip I've been on. It's like it's gonna be
You
ridiculous.
keep telling
so.
yourself that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, whatever you got to convince yourself that
It's
there's
a
going to be
business
some.
trip. It's a business trip with a
Yeah.
lot of rich, powerful people. I don't think there's too much to worry about.
And you're a gringo, so they're taking you to Tijuana.
You're gonna be like a god.
Hey,
Can you
Yes.
get a blanket in Tijuana
Should
for
I get
negative
kidnapping
75
insurance?
cents?
Yes,
I don't know.
you know what? And can you put my name on the policy? I'll take care of your wife. 1 minute. That's so weird. I'm not used to that. So I just said 1 minute because I heard the guys.
And you repeated it.
And I repeated it.
It's OCD.
It's so you'd be great on TV. They'd be like telling you little things, and you'd just be repeating them.
But I just want to say I think it's I love doing the show. I think it's great that we talk about stuff that I enjoy talking about, and I love the guests that come in. And I think it's really cool this salon you do, because I think it's just an important, and Mike with your comedy, because I think it's so important with sobriety to live your dreams. And both of you are doing stuff that's, you know, living your dreams, and you're showing people how to live your dreams, and you're both doing it sober. I can't think of anything better than that.
And thanks for coming in and being so open and having such an honest discussion about recovery.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So we encourage our listeners to listen to us online at KLEANradio.com. You can actually see the video, which posts about on Thursday generally. And you can see past episodes. This is our 14th show, so there's 13 shows online.
Nice.
KLEANradio.com, it's clean with a K. And we will be back next Sunday.
Hopefully you will.
Yep. So have a good morning, I guess, almost now. And we will see everybody next week.